And last but not least, let's talk about the legend of Vox Machina.
Right.
So I will do a review of this show here, right? So I was hearing about this through the grapevine actually, Somali, during her collaboration with us where we talked about Woodlands Dark and These Bewitched. She mentioned, the show, going on and being great and being worth being of worth in terms of, viewability and whatnot, right? But all I just knew about this was just that it was fantasy, well, dark fantasy, right? And I'll confess that, like, especially with the, this style of dark fantasy, right? Because it's more within the league of Dungeons and Dragons, right? So I don't know, maybe it's because I'm from Trinidad and I just never associate Dungeons and Dragons at all with, growing up in Trinidad, but I was never into Dungeons and Dragons at all. I saw the TV series, which was in syndication. Well, they actually used to show it on EVM Channel 4, that's the station in Trinidad, but like I never sat down and played any Dungeons and Dragons. I never played the board game at all. Like I was on Monopoly. That was my shit. That was my shit growing up. I'm sorry, I wasn't into that, right? I know there was the movie, the live action version, which everybody asked for. I know it had Marlon Wayans in it, right? But I heard that was shit, so I never bothered to watch that, right? But point is, I was never really into high fantasy like that, right? I was more into the Robert E. Howard stuff. I was more into Conan when it came to, fantasy and whatnot, right? But I wasn't into, the board game and, the journeys and, the casting spells and, all that kind of stuff, right? And just mainly you having to play the role of a fictional character and more or less create your own narrative in this sense. I was never into that, right? But that being said, though, this show is based off of, well, I believe is based within the world of Dungeons and Dragons, or it may be inspired by it. It's called Critical Role, right? I didn't even know about that until I jumped into this, right? And what's even more interesting as well is that the cast itself, right? Cast of this campaign here, because I just sort of like I actually like glanced at it in between binging this season here, I should say. They actually have their own YouTube channel. They have this like Zoom meeting basically where yeah they're just basically like just reading like assume it's script based basically, yeah, kind of going through this campaign, like just going through these series of adventures basically, right? And
Right.
the actual cast of the shows sorry, of that campaign actually shows up here, so they all like reprising their roles and whatnot. I thought that was really interesting here. We do get a couple of guest voices as well too. I heard McGill, Stephanie Beatrice as well. Indira Varma. Last time I saw her was in Game of Thrones. You even get David Tennant and all too. Like what?
Well,
Okay,
okay.
yeah,
Nice,
just
nice.
spending,
Yeah.
spend on their money. All right, all
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Dominic Monaghan and all too. Like all right. They even
Right.
get Gina Torres. Like all right, spend your money. Spend your money. You know what I mean? But yeah, what this show is about, right? So it's set in this mythical world of Exandria, right? So it's actually a world that this guy Matthew Mercer who created this whole thing, right? So it's his personal Dungeons and Dragons campaign that he launched into this web series, right? Called Critical Role, right? So it's set on the continent of Tal'Dorei, right? If I butchered the name wrong, forgive me, right? And we are introduced to this group of mercenaries called Vox Machina, right? And right off the bat, how they establish them, and I'll bring this up in the review, is very Guardians of the Galaxy s, right? There's the tough guy, right? He's the Drax character, right? There is the gunman, you know what I mean? There's the two elf-like warriors or elf rangers, if you want to call them right? We have a gnome who has, powers, mythical powers. We have another gnome who has powers as well too, but he's the comic relief basically in this whole show, right? And then we have this half elf druid who has these powers as well too. So it's the, I want to say, typical archetypes when it comes to of to fantasy of this nature, and you just get them through these characters here, right? So we have Vex and Vax. They are twins, but they are half elves and whatnot. We have Percival or Percy, right? He's actually my favorite character. He's a gunslinger. We have Pike Trickfoot. She is a gnome, and she has this power. So it's all related within this mystical power called Everlight, right? So in a way, it's like the Force in Star Wars, but it's more mythical, right? We have Keelet, right? She is a half-elf druid. She's more associated with like trees and plants, and she also has the ability to turn into different animals as well, which is really cool, right? We have Scanlan, right, who is a bard, right? But he's a gnome as well too, right? He is actually the most crass and vulgar out of everyone. He's always dropping some kind of random sex joke here or there, right? But his skill set is very cool though, because he has what you call that instrument again by 1 second. Let me see if I find it. Is it a lute by? Let me see if I find it. Is it a lute?
Like a kind of small guitar.
Yeah, yes, it's a lute. You're right, it's a lute, right? Yeah, so he has this magic lute. It actually creates, like, you would see Scanlan's hand, and you'll actually see it like if he's in a rock or metal band or whatnot. It's part of the charm of the character, right? And you'll see like a hand come out, like a magic hand, basically, right? And he usually sings his spells, right? Which is a nice little touch in terms of his character and whatnot, right? So what happens is that this kingdom is under the threat of this dragon. So, or this grave threat, basically. We find out it's a dragon, right? So they brought, and they do the job and whatnot, and the king and whatnot is so impressed by them, they actually give them their own little estate, their little land and whatnot for them to live in, basically, right? But then afterwards, we learn that there's a bigger enemy now by the name of Silas Briarwood, who is actually voiced by Matthew Mercer himself. He's the guy who created this thing, by the way, right? He and his wife now, we learn are vampiric, right? So I don't want to call them vampires per se, but they do have vampiric powers, right? And we learn that they basically running this town called Whitestone, right? This was originally owned by Percival's family, but they were like literally wiped out. They were like killed brutally, right? And they stole the show, basically, right? So yeah, Percy now through some circumstances, I would say they find themselves in Whitestone now, and Percy is just all hell-bent on revenge. He just wants to get rid of these guys, right? And at the same time, they just go through like a series of adventures, just a series of threats and tribulations and obstacles, basically, right? But the show itself mainly revolves around Percy's hellbent mission on stopping the Briarwoods, right? And I'll stop here, right? So as I said before, I mean, I am not the biggest fan of this style of fantasy, this Dungeons and Dragons style, basically. I know a couple of people who are into it as well too, but I don't know. I'm just not into the board game type of thing. I would more play it as a video game and just explore the worlds and whatnot. Not sit down in a board and play a board game like that, right? But hey, teach your own, right? But what really impressed me about this show is that it does cater to both to both people, like both classes of people, I would say, right? Those who enjoy Dungeons and Dragons, who enjoy board games and video games of similar to that, right? And then for me, it caters to just those who just enjoy just seeing a fantasy story played out in in an episodic fashion, right? It's very Game of Thrones influence, of course. I mean, it is, right? And it's within the same sort of Eurocentric vibe when it comes to the world building and all that kind of stuff, though. But ever so often you will hear like an American voice or two. So I like that it adds a lot of balance to it as well. So it's not just Eurocentric voices because it's a fantasy show, right? But you also hear American voices as well. That's really cool as well, right? But really what sells it though is just Vox Machina themselves, right? Actually, it's never said why they call Vox Machina though, but I guess if you play the game, or you watch the series, you'll understand, right? But I mean, just right off the bat, the moment they introduced to, you could tell that there's and I feel it's just unintentionally, right? But there is a Guardians of the Galaxy influence going on with the characters, right? You know how they will get into shenanigans and whatnot, right? But there's a lot of dark, deep stuff that's going on within each one character. They have their flaws, and they're not perfect, right? And it's always sold on how imperfect they are and how they kind of just need each other, right? That's one thing the show really needs, how much they really need each other. And not just when they're fighting and kicking ass, and they do a lot of fighting, a lot of kicking ass in this, right? But yes, when they need some emotional support, right? They're always there, right? For me, hands on, my favorite character in this show is Percival, aka Percy. He is such a badass in this show. For one thing, his skill set is awesome. So yeah, he has this this the sort of I would say way it's sort of steampunk inspired, though the sort of mini Gatling gun, right? That kind of style of gun, he has that, right? And when he uses it, it's always awesome. There's something about where like I don't know. I have to attribute it to the sound design though. But every time he's like firing shots though, there's this doom 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 to it though. It always like hits me now every time I hear it, right? But he has this well skill set, I would say, but it's also like this flaw, I should say, right? Where basically there's this demon that possesses him ever so often, right? And what happens is that he has this death list, right? This because it's in relation to the people who were involved in his family being killed, right? Way back when, right?
Right.
So his gun has this cool thing, right, where you would see a name kind of show up like a rune basically on the gun itself, right? Every time he confronts that same person, and he will be like, "Oh, you were the guy who did this, or you were the person who did this," right? And then like this, the sort of demon, it always kind of it covers his face with this kind of weird mask, basically, right? And it kind of covers his body like a shield, basically, the shadow. And yeah, he will talk to them down, and then he will just gun them down in cold blood. Like every time he does that, it is just awesome. I love that, right? I just love the complexity of the character as well too, because I mean, he wants to get the job done. It's all about the mission and all kind of stuff. But he is just so swept up in revenge and hate, though. Like it literally manifests itself into as this demon, right? Especially in like the last couple of episodes, though. Well, the last episode, see, though, where he has to come face to face with that demon itself, though. Yeah, that was great, too. Love that, right? You have the big, strong, tough guy, right? That is Grog. I forgot to mention him, right?
Right.
He is to me, I see him as the Drax in the group, right? He's tough, he fights, he never hesitates, but he's kind of goofy and silly and childish at the same time, right? And not all right to the head, right? But you love him because of how goofy and silly he is. But when it's time to get down, he gets down, right? I love that, right? And yeah, I mean, yes, the characters themselves, even right now, the villains themselves are archetypes, right? You've seen these before in any form of dark fantasy. Even like quite recently, stuff like Castlevania or Dota Dragon's Blood, or to extent Arcane. I mean, you've seen characters like that before, right?
Right.
But I like that the show itself is aware of that. It knows that yes, it is familiar, but it's not derivative per se. It's a fantasy world. You've seen fantasy worlds before. There are characters in this world who move like, just like the characters you play off of like a RPG or a board game or whatever, right? But, it's not like, it's similar but different in a way, right? So I like that the show itself is not trying to reinvent the wheel or anything like that. It knows exactly what it's being influenced by, right? That being said, though, I love how, because just right off the bat, this is TVME, right? So I love how, how mature it approaches the subject matter, right? I mean, you get your action, you get your thrills, you get your emotion, all that, but it's still very, R-rated and whatnot, right? There's, a lot of like, they'll drop the old, language here, there as well too, right? And at times, I know for some people, they might find it to be, how to say, like edgelordy in a sense, like, oh, we just have to drop these things just because. But I think it just adds to the charm of the show, right? Especially the opening sequence of the first episode alone. That's the way how it sets up, how it sets up everything. Though I love that. It's funny and it's dark at the same time, right? Another criticism I know people will have with the show is the tones, right? So like off the first episode, you might think, oh, it's like a parody of dark fantasy, right? So it's the same stuff that but we just drop in all these crass humor into it, right? But in a way, it is like that, but it's not like that. Especially when
Right.
when the show itself continues on, right? At first, it may seem like that, right? But it's far from a parody, though. It's its own world, though, and you can tell, like, it's coming from people who are really passionate about this style of storytelling, anyway, right? But yeah, even though there is, coarse language in it as well too, it's not in an edgy, it's in an edgy way, but not in an edgelord. We trying hard to be, kind of way. It just kind of feels like no, we know what we do, right? But I know for some people, they might just find like, okay, they're just trying too hard to be edgy, trying too hard to be funny. But most times I found myself like really laughing at some of the jokes too, especially like the stuff that Scanlan was dropping as well too. Yeah, 'cause he would just drop some sexual innuendo here or there as well too. But it's just how at times it's real out of time anyway how he drops it. But it works. It works in terms of the character, right? The villains themselves, I thought that they were well fleshed out as well too. Very menacing as well too. You really love to hate them. That's what I love about them, right? And you really feel it for the characters themselves when they have to square off against them, right? Now, I will say though, like, as far as the main characters go, you're not gonna get a lot of depth in this, right? You're not gonna get a lot of backstory and all that kind of stuff. You really get more with three characters per se. That would be Percy himself, especially with the, stuff with his family. Kaylet, especially with what's going on with her trying to awaken her powers, that's all I would say.
Right.
And Pike herself, right? Where she has powers, but at a point in time, she feels like she loses them. And then she has to kind of like go back to basics and kind of learn about her powers and all that kind of stuff, right? Yeah, those three characters get a lot of embellishment, I would say. But the other characters are just there to kind of do what they do. But in no way am I saying that they're one-dimensional. They're just not given as much emphasis as certain characters and whatnot, right? Animation wise, I would say it's as Ashton says, as Ashton Menzies says, basically it's very ameri-me, right? It's very American anime, that kind of style, right? There's a lot of like anime like moments and character moments and stuff like that, but you could tell it's American studio. Actually, these guys, Titmouse, if you remember them.
Yeah.
They do
work. They still do work. They're still doing
stuff.
They
do.
Yeah,
they do. Yeah. And I remember like how Castlevania was,
right.
Where it looked like anime, but it's an American studio, right? I think it was Powerhouse who worked on it or something like that, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And last thing that's because it's from Amazon Studios, though, I would say while it doesn't go as gory and brutal as say Invincible did, at points you could tell that it's going like it's almost a tip of reaching that point, because as you would expect, this show is pretty violent though, but you can't expect it in a show like this anyway, Trent. So there's a lot of bloody kills and all that kind of stuff, but it totally works in the context of what the show is about. And just for me though, just seeing where the story plays out though, especially those last two episodes though, I would say legit had me on my seat though, because literally this is where shit hits the fan. This is where everything is just hitting home now, you know what I mean, and where it all goes. I was on board though. And last thing I'll say before I get to rating, that it ends on a cliffhanger, and I must say when that cliffhanger dropped, I was like, I can't wait for season 2. I am ready. I am there. I want to see this as soon as, right? So at the end of the day, I was thoroughly impressed by this though. I did go in with my expectations a little bit high though, and I wouldn't say that this is like the best animated dark fantasy show that you will see though, but I will say that this is one of the most enjoyable you will see, man. At the moment, I can't say that it's up there like, say, a Castlevania. Because remember, Castlevania took a while to grow on me, but even early on, I was impressed by what I was seeing, right? And I forgot to mention too, voice acting, of course, top notch, right? You kind of come to expect that with shows like this anyway, right? But I feel that with more seasons though, this could grow. This actually could grow and develop into a really like solid animated series, man. So but I would say really what makes it work though is that it appeals not just to fans of this this genre of fantasy. Well, I would say fans of dark fantasy as a whole, right? But it like non-fans could go into this and be like, I get this. Yeah, this is cool, right? It's like those games. It's like those video games, right? It's like a Warcraft. It's like a Elden Ring. It's like that, but it's something totally different, right? You don't have to know about Dungeons and Dragons to understand this. Believe me, I know little to nothing about Dungeons and Dragons. All I just know is just the TV show and that god awful movie. That's all I know. But if you were to ask me anything about Dungeons and Dragons, I can't tell you, right? But you don't have to be a fan to appreciate this. You don't have to be a fan to enjoy this show here. And yeah, there's a lot to appreciate. There's a lot to enjoy in this, man. So yeah, for me, I'm gonna give this a decent, strong 4 out of 5, man. This season one, really kicked things off on a high note, though. I really want to see where the show goes. I actually heard that a second season was already greenlit. So yeah, I want to see more seasons out of this. And I mean, it's from Amazon Studios, right? So I don't think they're gonna cancel stuff just because, right? I don't think they'll do that. But yeah, I would say this is another win for Amazon Studios, man. So they have The Boys, they have Invincible, and now they have this. So yeah, I mean, as far as adult action content goes, yeah, they have it up there, man. I know. Well, just off topic, by the way. I know Amazon Studios. I think they actually dropped the first episode of The Boys Diabolical, right? That's the
that's
anthology.
Yeah. So I didn't watch it, but yeah.
I haven't watched it as yet. I actually want to wait till it wraps up and then I could take it in. Because it's an anthology, right? It's an anthology series. So I mean, yeah. But I have a feeling that's going to be just as good as those other titles that I mentioned here, and of course, The Legend of Vox Machina. So yeah, I mean, Amazon Studios really shape it up to be a strong contender, along with to I would say to HBO Max and to extent Netflix, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you're looking for, I would say it was just funny, right? If you're looking for the next replacement to say to Castlevania, or if you just watch Dota Dragon's Blood and you're looking for something similar within that genre, I would say, yeah, give this a look, man. You'll totally enjoy it, man. You'll totally enjoy it.